Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters on Armstrong Television. I'm your host, Carter Seaton, and it's great to have you with us today. And I am thrilled today to have as our guest Diane Tarantini. She is the author of The Brave Knight. Diane hails from Huntington, West Virginia, but now calls a 112-year-old Sears Kit House in Morgantown her home. She earned a bachelor's degree in journalism from West Virginia University and later an MFA in creative nonfiction from Converse College. Her recently published book, The Brave Knight, is a children's book, and it was chosen to be distributed to each of the 7,000 foster children in West Virginia. Her stories have placed in the West Virginia Fiction Competition and in the Writer's Digest Annual Writing Competition. Her story, Black Lungs, placed second in the West Virginia Writers Annual Contest in the Appalachian Writing category. And then it was nominated later for a Pushcart Award. Yay, Diane. The link to her blog post, Killing Her Softly, was retweeted by the Pioneer Woman over 26,000 times. As much as she loves writing down the words, she also loves speaking them out loud every bit as much. Welcome. It's great to have you with us.
I'm super excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's first start off by finding out what started you down the writing path.
A lot of times I will tell people ever since the fourth grade, I've known two things. I've known I'd get counseling, and I've known I'd write a book. And Carter, you of all people, you've read my memoir manuscript, so you know why the counseling piece. I'll be transparent enough with your audience to say I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and so therefore the counseling. And I always knew the story would be a compelling one, but that's not the story that happens in The Brave Knight. But to get back to your question, I've known since the fourth grade I've wanted to be a writer. I drifted away from that for a period of time, but then I don't know, like as you get older and you're kind of like, what is my purpose? What brings me joy? As I really pondered that idea, those questions, I just came back to I love words. And
you started off in journalism. Did you write journalistically for a while?
I was journalism advertising.
Oh, okay.
So no, I wasn't. But then really quickly after I decided I want to pursue writing for real, two things happened. I went to a big deal writing conference out in Colorado. I can't even tell you how much money I spent. And then someone told me about the West Virginia writers. And I went to that concert or that conference. It was 1/10 the price. And the workshops and the workshop presenters all said the exact same things as a really expensive conference. So I am always a big proponent of telling people to attend the West Virginia Writers Conference every summer in Ripley because it's a great value and you find your tribe. We're all talking the same language and there's workshops in your genre, whether you write poetry, nonfiction, or fiction, right, or plays. We have that too.
Though you went off to Converse to get an MFA in creative fiction.
Yeah, nonfiction. Yes. Another West Virginia writer, Rhonda Browning White, had gotten her or was in the process of getting her MFA from Converse, and she was loving her experience. So I actually did something that I really recommend people do. I contacted the program and asked if I could audit one day of their residency. And so when I go down and you see like New York Times bestsellers and people on a really high level presenting craft workshops, I was sold. Did you keep a journal as you grew up as an older? I do. I have a box in my basement that has journals of really bad poetry. I don't know poetry well. I only know what I like. Like right now, I am reading the collection of Mary Oliver poems, and I love them. But that's usually not the genre I pick. I do read a lot of nonfiction, And I also really enjoy fiction.
Have you ever used the book called The Artist's Way?
I've started The Artist's Way, and I really see the value of morning pages. I don't think I've completed the whole program. I didn't go on like creativity dates and all that stuff. But when you do morning pages in that first hour or two of waking, you access this part of your brain, and just free writing, you can get a lot of content to draw on later. So I definitely see the value.
Do you have author heroes when you first started writing?
A really funny story. There's a gentleman who teaches at Converse. Oh gosh, if he saw this, I'd be embarrassed. His name is Bob Olmsted, and he wrote Coal Black Horse. He wrote the most beautiful memoir I've ever read. I think it's called Stay Here With Me. And he wrote a book about the buffalo hunt. Savage. Oh, I can't remember the name. But I was so scared of him during the program. And then I graduated and I started reading his work, and he instantly, I don't know if you I have my top 5 favorite books or top 5 favorite authors. Like he just went up so high. Mm-hmm. And it made me so sad that I hadn't spent time and picked his brain and really talked to him more, because he writes beautifully. Mm-hmm. Of course, I love Harper Lee. Mm-hmm. I love To Kill a Mockingbird. The Goldfinch, we've talked about the Goldfinch. We really enjoyed that, although it was a very large, long piece. I love Olive Kittredge. I've read all 3 of them. A lot of people don't know there's a third one. It will knock your socks off. And I'm thankful that Natalie Seipold really talked about Olive Kittredge and the idea of linked stories. Mm-hmm. But that is some beyond beautiful writing and character development. I'll tell you another story. My mom was a big fan of romance. And when I started a MFA program, I started feeding her literary works. And she really loved them. She loved Jim Minnick's book, Fire is Your Water. She got to within 2 chapters of the end, and she stopped for 2 weeks because she didn't want the story to end. That's what every author wants to hear. She wrote Silas House, a letter saying, I love your words. But she read Olive Kittredge and loved it so much. She said she cried when it was over. Mm-hmm. And after my mom passed, I wanted to know what the big deal about Olive Kittredge was, because I hadn't read it yet. And I read the book and I was like, oh, my mother was Olive Kittredge. If you've read that, anybody, I'm not going to spoil it. If you've read it, you will know. You will have a fully formed picture of my mom. Yeah. And it made me feel closer to her because of all of the things that Olive deals with.
Right. So when you finished your MFA program, when you graduated, what did you think you would write? So many of us in the nonfiction track in my cohort had memoirs, Carter, no lie, had them going in. So they ask you on your application, what do you expect to get out of this? And I was like, in no way, shape, or form, I sound like Jim Justice. I have no grandiose delusions that this will get me published. I love words, and I want to get better at putting them on paper. But did anything in that make you think you would ever write a children's book?
Never. Never.
And what made you?
That's one of my philosophies, is never say never. So in the process of pitching the memoir, I can't tell you how many times I heard, it's really hard to sell a memoir if you're not a celebrity, if you don't have a platform in the tens of thousands. Oh gosh, Carter, you read my memoir manuscript and said, baby, go big, go big. I was so thankful for that. And you said, who do you know? Think of the highest person you know and get the manuscript to them. I had one person I had one person with 80 published books. And I reached out to him during the pandemic because you said nobody's doing anything during the pandemic. He has time to read your book. So I asked him if he would read it. And he said, sure. Not the answer I was expecting. I was so grateful. And he emailed me in 24 hours.
Wow.
He said, okay. He said two things. Usually when people tell me they have a book, they don't actually have a book yet. He goes, you've got the whole thing. He said, and how did you get this good?
Wow, that's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I was like, it's every book I've read. It's the West Virginia Writers Conference. It's my MFA program. It's a lot of beta readers. It's so much goes into a good manuscript.
Absolutely.
It's not what you just put on paper and send out to an agent. That's your rough draft. But he introduced me to two agents. And one of the agents talked to me for 1 hour. She was so high level, I can't even tell you her name. And she suggested I write a self-help book based on the content in the memoir. So I was working on that when someone said, you're a writer. Could you write a children's book that shows kids what grooming is? The process by which a sexual predator gains the trust of a potential victim and or their family. Mm-hmm. And I said, I guess I can try, because you don't say no. You take the opportunity and do your best. And we had an initial brainstorming meeting, what we thought needed to be in the book. We knew we wanted a dragon character. We knew we wanted a shield. And I went to bed that night going, I don't know how I'm going to do this. If you've ever been given a magazine or a newspaper column assignment and you don't know how you're going to do it, it's that feeling like it's imposter syndrome. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the chops to do that. But 4 days later, and I hope you've had this experience, Carter, when an idea descends,
yes,
fully formed, start to finish, 90% complete. And that's how The Brave Knight came to me. I woke up on a Saturday morning. I walked over to my computer. I typed out 1,600 words. I read it to my husband. He goes, I don't even know how that's possible. Sent it to the guy who asked me if I could do it. He goes, it's perfect. And then I got an illustrator. And then when I heard about the foster child project, where they were sending out basically care packages, love packs to the most at-risk kids in West Virginia, I said, oh my goodness, this book, The Brave Knight, foster kids are 4 times more likely to be sexually abused than a child in a normal setting. Okay. So this was a perfect book because it tells them what a predator says, how they act, how you feel on the receiving end. It also applies to bullies or friends that are going down a bad path, like let's drive drunk, let's do drugs. So I'm so proud. I say, I know I'll write more books, but I don't know if I'll write a more important one. I feel like I'm the conduit for the story. I feel like I'm the steward for the story. I feel guilty if I even try to take credit for it, Carter. I don't know how to explain it. Have you ever had that? Where you're like, Black Lungs, that story, total gift.
Wow.
Elizabeth Gilbert and her big magic.
Did you read or study any children's books before you actually started to know?
I did.
You did?
I did, in terms of more like what I wanted my illustrations to be like. Like this was our family's favorite children's book growing up, The Mightiest Heart. The illustrations are gorgeous. It's got a little bit of a dark feel. And then, this is a fantastic book. I read this for the AmeriCorps reading program. I went down to Fairmont every week and read them a couple chapters of this. It's about a boy whose mom is sick with cancer, and a monster comes and accompanies his hand and mentors him and supports him through the process. But like my book, the illustrations are dark and pen and ink and black and white. So that was, that influenced me. And I just gave my illustrator a pile of books and said, I gave her one of Anna Smucker's books because it was, most of the illustrations were dark or at night. And I really liked that feel.
Now, I wondered if you did that intentionally so that it had a bit of a kind of a scary feel to it.
Yeah.
It's a darker subject. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not lambs and cute dogs.
My next door neighbor, she has a grade school, like a 4th or 5th grade boy and a middle school boy, and she's a professor at WVU. And when she wrote her review, she goes, "I recommend that kids read this with a parent." It is. I actually met with West Virginia Public Broadcasting last week. A writer friend connected me with the education director there. And she told me, this was very encouraging. She goes, "I think your book fills a void for teens or middle schoolers or 5th graders." Because, and I would agree, when I look at the comparables in the field of body safety and child abuse prevention, they're very babyish, very cherubic little cartoons with cute little baby looking characters. And this is a real story. This isn't look for the red flags. This is a narrative with a protagonist, an antagonist, a guide. It's a real story from start to finish. So what age group would you recommend it for? But I would, I imagine like 1st through 8th graders. Mm-hmm. When I found out that parents of toddlers and preschoolers were buying the book, I actually, my illustrator is a licensed professional counselor. We made a document that's best practices for reading the book with your child. And it said, if you've got a little kid that's not even in school yet, just read the story and talk about it. Because there's resources in the back of the book. But like a 4-year-old isn't going to be ready for that.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Did you intend from the very beginning to have a study guide and an activity section in it?
I actually did not. And that is one of the things I'm grateful to the pandemic for. As I was sitting on the project, I was actually training to be a body safety educator in West Virginia. And we were doing the presentations virtually. There was a policeman from down your way. And he talked about making a personal safety plan. Mm-hmm. He's like, make a list of trusted adults, make a plan, and practice the plan. He had statistics that these will double your chance of a positive outcome if you get in a difficult situation. Another thing that I did with the nonprofit Libera that I was working with at the time, we would go into schools and just set up a table and any kid could come up and talk to us about anything. And Carter, it broke my heart because I don't think we ever did one of these listening events that a child didn't come up and say, or a student, these are middle schoolers, high schoolers, I am having suicidal thoughts, or we're a pack of friends and our friend is having suicidal thoughts. So I thought, if I can put resources in the back of a book, and if they read this book once and like it enough to not donate it to Goodwill or give it to their little sibling, then if anything ever crazy comes up in their life, they can go back to that book, turn to the back page and get those phone numbers. The one number is a text number, the National Crisis Text Line. A kid can text, which is their very favorite thing on the planet to do. They don't want to actually talk to anybody, but they will text somebody and say, I'm being abused. And there's certain content that that organization will immediately contact authorities in that child's town and go give them help directly if it's something that's extremely serious.
How did the connection with giving the book to the foster children come about? That's just fantastic.
Yeah. So at the time, I was a communications director for the nonprofit Libera, which works to help teens and women in West Virginia identify obstacles in their life, and we give them resources to help make these obstacles hopefully go away, but manageable. So when the pandemic shut the world down, and we were not allowed as a nonprofit to go into the school and listen and counsel and run small groups with teens, our executive director, Karen Herring, said, why don't we get the resources to them? And so we came up with the idea of these colorful sling bags filled with snacks and resources that the kids could call, anxiety apps, coloring books, because coloring has been shown to decrease anxiety and stress. And then they were putting in books. Oh gosh, this was a turning point in my life. This is why I want writers to always listen to their gut and their instinct, because I had 2 turning points in a week. We were having a packing party for these love packs, and I was opening books from a Big 5 publisher. I think it was Simon and Schuster. And it was, I forget the title of the book, but it was looked like a sloth or something on the front. Mr. Snagglepuss and the Superpower Questions or something. And all I could think of was, no offense to that author, my book, my story, my illustrator's drawings, and the resources in the back of my book are every bit as good. Mm-hmm. This should be my book going out to 7,000 foster kids. And then a week later at my review, my boss said, gotta love a boss like this. Is there anything I can do to further your writing career?
Wow.
And I put on my courage suit and I said, yes, there is. Make my book one of the books in the love packs. And she said, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
So that must make you feel really good that these kids are getting that book and getting that help.
I had a local attorney who works with families and children text me. She actually lives one street over, and she goes, I just did a family visit, and the Brave Knight was in their living room.
Oh, that's great.
And she told them that she knew me, and they're like, show us a picture of her. So they wanted to see I think she went to my blog or something. They were like so impressed that their attorney knew the author of the Brave Knight. That was really great.
You mentioned your blog. Tell me about the blog post, the one that was called "Killing Her Softly."
Oh my gosh!
It sounds like part of a song lyric.
Yes. So it's not for the faint of heart. Okay. It is about the process of transitioning your pet over the Rainbow Bridge.
Oh, okay.
So, and that literally is what it felt like. We were killing her softly. And one of my friends in town texted me like at 9 that night, like after I pushed my post out on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and someone on Twitter it had just gotten shared around, and the Pioneer woman said, I have never cried so hard in my life. Everybody read this. And every hour as I checked the number of views, it was going up 500, 1,000. That's probably like what the Kardashians feel like or Stephen King. I mean, it's crazy when something that you do goes viral.
All right. So are you working on another project?
I feel like right now my job is promoting the Brave Knight, and I'm going to do that. I mean, I have some initial work done with the self-help book. The agent was so helpful. She told me like how many words it should be. She told me it needed to be illustrated. She gave me comps. That's if great. You can find someone multiple people in the industry that, like, I know she's not going to publish my book. I know she's not going to represent me. But if I ask her one question a year via email, she's happy to answer it.
That's
And
wonderful.
if you can have writers or agents or publishers that you can just ask your one question to, just make the connections.
Right.
And those happen at conferences.
I think readers are always curious about a writer's routine. Do you write every day?
Let's see. I've heard, I mean, if you read Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, read or write this much every day. I see the value in that, but I also know that a lot of people are really successful, like especially like stay-at-home moms, with not writing every day, but then writing 3,000 words every Saturday. The key is to finding what works for you. But I'll tell you what, when you're writing a book, I mean, when you're working on a manuscript or you're writing for a magazine or a newspaper, you are writing every day. Or if you get in that habit of journaling every day. And when I blogged, that was like one of the best things I ever did. It developed my voice. It got me used to having feedback. It disciplined me to a deadline. Writing every day is really good advice. I would say.
When do you find time to read?
I read at bedtime, and so you know what that means. I fall asleep. It takes me a long time to get through a fiction book unless it's ridiculously compelling. But on writing, Stephen King says, what does he say? To read 3 hours a day? 3 hours a day.
Yeah, I wouldn't
classics.
Done.
Yeah. How about you? When do you write? When do you read?
At bedtime, 15 minutes is about all I make.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Diane, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. I think we're about out of time, but tell us before we go how to get The Brave Knight.
Okay. The Brave Knight is on Amazon. When I go in to check how many reviews I have, I put in The Brave Knight book by Diane Tarantini, and then you'll find it that way. And you can also get them from me directly. My copies are signed by me and the illustrator. They also come with my document, Best Practices. They're a better paper and they're a better printing process. And you can just send me a email if you can write really fast. I'm writing dianett@gmail.com. Okay, cool. My blog and website is dianetarantini.com. You can also contact me there.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. I surely appreciate it. And thank you all for watching once again. This is Carter Seaton saying until the next time, take care, stay tuned to Armstrong for the news and views that impact you. Have a good day.
Connect with Chapters through email. Write to lp4@zoominternet.net. Chapters has a Facebook page at Armstrong Chapters. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. All Chapters episodes are available on YouTube. Visit the Armstrong Neighborhood channel on YouTube and look for a playlist of all the Chapters programs.